It's time for love. It's time for your love coach. Let's find out if you're ready for love. Here's your marvelous host, Nikki Lee.
Hello, and welcome to Ready for Love Radio. This is your host and love coach, Nikki Lee. Now, we've been talking about being present, being productive, being there for people in your relationship and in your life. Now, today I've got an author with me and a coach who wrote a book called Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful. So that goes right along with the theme that I've had for the last few weeks. So I'd like to welcome Ryan Stanley. Ryan, it's great to have you with me today.
Nikki, it is great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to it all week long.
Well, great. It's great to have you with me today, and you're joining me from the great state of New Jersey. See, we just finished up a show with a New Jersey guy, and I've got another one with me right now. This is great.
Super theme for the week. We'll take it. Got to represent the Northeast. Yeah, it's awesome. No, I mean, I'm 45 minutes from New York. I'm 45 minutes from Philadelphia. I'm about an hour from the beach. I can go into Pennsylvania, do some skiing in the winter. It's a great place to be. Not as great as your show, but just in general, New Jersey is a great place to be.
Hey, man, you're closer to the beach than I am. That's not fair. That's okay. I'm close. I'm far enough from the beach during hurricane season, though, and we're
exactly.
We're right in it. So that's okay. I'm
safe.
Yeah, I can be at the beach in 3 hours, and I can be in Hatteras in 5. So I'm good.
Yeah,
this is cool. It works.
Got it figured out. It certainly does.
Like I said, I'm far enough away when the hurricanes hit. So this is good, and I'm in the mountains, so this works too. So
love it.
So let me tell y'all, Ryan is a lifelong entrepreneur who is known for his impressively natural ability to connect with, understand, and empower those who are willing to make significant changes in their personal and professional lives so they can end up being the best versions of themselves. Since graduating from the Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching in 2009, he's changed the lives of hundreds of clients from all walks of life. He's worked with them on everything from daily professional growth to how they want to show up energetically in other more personal areas of their life. And in July of last year, he published his first book titled Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful, a first aid kit for the emotional bumps, scrapes, and bruises of life. You know, I've written a whole lot of books, and I've read, I so lost count of how many I've read at this point. Yeah. But I really, really like the whole idea of a first aid kit. And I was looking over the book before we got on here.
Yeah.
And that is one of the most unique, and I kind of pride myself on unique layouts for books because I lay out books for myself and for clients. I really, really like the layout for your book because it's
so much.
Really, really unique. I was looking at that and I'm like, this is just so unusual. And unusual is a humongous compliment for me. You don't know me yet, but unusual and unique are big compliments when I say that.
I will take that, and that was my intention when creating it. So even just to have both of those things reflected back means a lot. So thank you very much for making the time to say that.
But I really like that because, like I said, it's because I read books and they have just the same old boring layout. It's like, oh, come on, people, use some creativity.
Mix it up a little bit.
Yes, seriously, show some imagination. But it's so great the way you did that. I love it.
Thank you so much.
You almost have to read this just to enjoy the layout of this thing. And I got to tell you, I think my favorite saying and that you used was because you need patience, But how many times have you seen somebody that's acting patient? They're acting like they have patience, but they really don't. So I love your one where you say, patience is not simply the ability to wait, but it's how we behave while we're waiting. Oh, my God, I love that. That is so perfect.
Well, so much truth. In fact, as a coach, and you might know this as well, even in a relationship building sense, sometimes I'll mention to people, the importance of patience, and they'll just say, well, Ryan, I don't want to just sit around and do nothing. And I said, well, I didn't say anything about doing nothing at all. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Patience is knowing that it's going to turn out the way it's supposed to, when it's supposed to, and your job in the meantime is to show up on purpose and do everything that you can in your ability with joy and with love and gratitude to make that outcome occur.
Right. Well, and
it can be one of the most powerful tools there are out there.
Being patient doesn't mean that you sit there and drive the person insane in the meantime.
Right.
That's not the essence of being patient. It's just not.
Yeah.
But I looked at that, and for some reason my brother's face popped into my head. But that's a long story.
Got it. Yeah, and in the sense of the book, I intentionally wrote it that way. So again, to hear you say those words is such a blessing. So, I've been, as you mentioned, and thank you for the lovely introduction, I've been a certified professional coach since 2009. So in over 10 years of coaching, I've seen these common themes of patience and presence and self-awareness and joy that I don't want to belittle them as, it's no big deal. It's certainly, I say that they're basic in the sense that there's things that we can all access easily. But to your point, there's so many books that I've read, and they're 300-400 pages long. And, they're going to spend 120 pages telling you what they're going to tell you. They spend another 100-plus pages telling you what they're telling you, and then a third 100-plus pages telling you what they told you.
Right.
And I am not an awesome reader, right? I love books. I think there's some tremendous value out there and some amazing books that will absolutely change your life. I just usually am not the one who's going to be able to finish them. So I wanted something that I could pick up and read. Like if I'm having a tough day, today's my overwhelm, today I'm feeling stressed for various reasons, whatever it could be, I want something that I could pick up and read in 35 minutes and gain some concepts, gain some immediate steps that I can just step into and walk away with, right? And know a different way to consider how I'm showing up in life on a daily basis. So that's A. But then B, to your point, it was constructed very specifically to be a first aid kit. So even whether you've read the whole thing or not, at any given point, you can open it to any page and find something that will serve you. There are highlighted quotes, there are highlighted text, there are illustrations, there are just small passages. On every page, there's what I call Band-Aids at the end of each chapter, which are just different things that you can grasp. And so that was the intention. And it's also physically very small. You can carry it in your pocket. You can carry it, in your glove compartment. You can put it in your purse for the ladies out there. It's something that you can always carry on you. And if you're having a stressful moment, just to say, okay, life, what do you have for me today? I could use a glimpse of some love, what do you have, and to open it up and find something. And that was the intention behind the unique setup that you pointed out. So thank you for pointing that out.
Right. Yeah, I saw the Band-Aids. That's cute. I like that too.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and then the back half of the book is called CPR, right? And it's not so the first half of the book. Yeah, the first half of the book is really telling you, giving you very specific steps and patience and presence, joy and self-awareness. But then the second half of the book is CPR, and that's really like, hey, I'm kind of having an emergency. Give me something. And there are different blurbs kind of taken from my Instagram page and other areas of my life where you can just read something quickly and ideally, take something away that will make you feel better.
Well, and they're actually in red too, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of going with the theme of a first aid kit. Right.
Well, like I said, it's funny. I don't think I paid as much attention to book layout until I started doing book layout. Then it's just like now I pay a whole lot of attention to that. And it's like, there's so many options of what you can do. Well, and even my senior year in high school, I was annual editor, and I started learning all the options you have, and I'm like, why don't people do all these cool things? Why do they go with the boring stuff? So and then when I started writing and started having the options of working with the editors and the layout people, I was like, this is so great, So.
Well, and even just knowing that there are options, right? Especially, people who are authors are creative in standpoint, so it's an opportunity to add more creativity to your project, to your creation.
Exactly.
Make it more fun.
Shake it up. My goodness, people.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, definitely.
Come on, guys, get it together.
Exactly. Come on. Let people really enjoy the experience. My gracious.
Yeah.
But all right. I wasn't going to get into all the book stuff right away, but I never know what I'm going to do when I do this. So I like to go about.
That's why we're here. I'm a big fan of improvisation in general. I think life is an adventure, and the more we can just be present now and enjoy the journey, that's what it's all about. So you are right on point. I love it. Happy to be here.
There you go. Well, I tell people, I said, when you're a guest on my show, we're just going to have a casual conversation, and warning, you never know what I'm going to ask. so tell me ahead of time what's off limits. So
yeah, those are my favorite types of conversations. I'm in the right place.
and the listeners never know what to expect. So
right. That's why they keep coming back.
Hey, there you go. All right. So now judgment. I have a big issue with people that are judgmental. So sure. But I love curiosity. I am a very, very curious person. I actually had to talk with my 17-year-old neighbor about that yesterday.
Yeah.
And so tell me how you would describe the difference between judgment and curiosity. I think there's a huge difference. But how would you, since we've just met, I think this will give me an insight into you. How would you describe the difference between that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's one of the most important things that are out there, because when you so really, I should dial it back. I feel like they're really, while there are major and important differences between the two, they're also both sides of the same coin. Right?
Okay.
Because really, you are recognizing something as different, or something that is different from your way of being. And so typically, many of us are raised by our parents in a certain town and in a certain culture, often with maybe a certain religion background. And a lot of the time we are raised with certain people who are in very similar spaces, and we tend to gather around with other people who are like that as well. And so we get used to a way of being that we consider normal, or in some cases right, or the best way to be, because that's the way we've seen it and it's a perspective. And so as soon as we see somebody who is different, we judge them. We judge them in comparison based on our life. And so we see them as different, and suddenly we're judging it as good or bad.
Well, what we're used to is our normal. So we just are kind of raised to think that's the normal. Not our normal, but the normal.
Right.
What do you think? Okay.
Yeah, of course we do, right? And the other thing is everybody is that way in some capacity, right? And so then we take that and realize. So it's funny, though. I will just point out, and I'm pointing this out with love, Nikki, is that you said at the top of this conversation, like, I have a real issue with people who are judgmental, and in that sense, you are actually judging people who are judgmental,
right?
Right.
All right.
Right. So it's important to recognize that we all do it. That's my whole point. Like, and so it's part of being human. But when we start recognizing that we're doing that on a regular basis, and then the opposite, or the other side of the coin is curiosity, right? So if you can instead say, so I'll dial it back in and just say, listen, we are all exactly who we should be for every single second of life that we lived up until this moment. And to your point, that's our normal, and that's what we believe the normal is. And when we see somebody as different, we judge them against ourselves. But if we were to ask ourselves, who would I be if I were born to their parents in their town at the moment they were born, and lived every single second of life that they've lived, and had every experience, good, bad, ugly, in response to those experiences, I would be showing up exactly as they are in this moment.
Exactly.
And when we start to, instead of judging them for being who they are and who they should be based on every single second of their life, and instead get curious as to what that life may have been like, which had led them to be this way, we open up possibility, and we open up empathy, and we open up understanding to connect with, not only connect with, but possibly empower others and learn more about ourselves.
Yes,
because when you can
definitely
combine that you combine that empathy and curiosity, you start to meet people where they're at. And when you judge somebody, you put them in a box, whether you know it or not. They're immediately good and they're immediately bad. one or the other, right? In some capacity compared to yourself. But when you're, and so that's it. That's the box there. Well, they're this way. But when you're curious, it's opening like, well, they appear this way to me, but I wonder what else. And or I wonder why. And when you get to wonder why, it leads to other things, right? Other aspects of curiosity. And it can go on and on. You could always ask more questions from there. So when we genuinely start to utilize curiosity, especially in a relationship, I know your show is about love, and so often two things. One, in important relationships, we will find ourselves judging our partner based on behavior that might not serve us and based on our life experience. And it doesn't mean that decisions or actions shouldn't have consequences, right? I'm not saying that all behavior is acceptable. I am saying that there's a reason for it in some capacity. Right. And so when we start to be more curious as to why people behave the way they do and intend to meet them where they're at least to just see what that's about, it makes us more present, and it gives us more of an opportunity to enjoy the flow of life. And then I think most importantly, not only when we're judging others, but judging ourselves. How often do we say, I should be farther along in my career, I should be in a better relationship, I should be losing more weight, I should have a better car, what are all these different things? We're constantly judging ourselves. When instead, a really simple trick for your listeners out there is to recognize the difference between should and could. And should is judging, could is curiosity. Right. So I should lose weight. Well, then you're labeling yourself as someone who's bad and not good enough because they haven't lost weight. But when you say I could lose weight, it opens up opportunity for you to do something different. And then you can follow that question. Well, if I could, then what could I do about that? What is the first step in doing that? And just the overall energy, even when you say it, feels different, right? Compared to, well, you should be doing this. Well, you could be doing this. So judgment versus curiosity is so important. When we really start to recognize our opportunities to be more curious in everything in life, it really opens us up to a feeling of freedom and connectivity and opportunity, and from my experience.
Oh, yeah, I like that. All right. That went all kinds of cool directions I didn't imagine. But, yeah, awesome question. Yeah. Boy, I might use that question with other people.
Well, it's huge, right? I mean, how often do you find yourself judging yourself or others? Or even group judgment, right? All of a sudden you're like 4 or 5 people and you're judging one other person. And you're sitting there and you're all creating, we all create like we're judging and we're putting somebody in a box based on their life. And when instead we can say, be more empathetic and curious as to how they got to be there. And then we can even compare themselves to our normal in some capacity. Well, I guess it would make sense. If I was that way, I might be feeling this way, or I might do it differently. And really, in the grand scheme of things, that sense of not keeping people in a box and not judging them, and instead being more curious and empathetic is a different form of love.
Definitely. Well, and that's the thing. No matter how well we know somebody, we haven't lived their life. There's even I mean, just like my immediate family, there are things that even when we lived in the same house, they have no idea about certain things that happened in my life and how they impacted me. And even things that they did to me, they have no clue how they impacted me and the effect it has had on me throughout my life. So, you just do not know that person's life experience even when you lived with them. You just don't.
And you never will. I mean, we each have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day.
Yeah.
So there's no way. Meanwhile, we're having our own 60 to 70,000 thoughts. How can we possibly know what someone else's 60 to 7,000 thoughts are? And that's just one day. There's 365 those in a year. You add anywhere from 1 to 100 years to that. And it's a lot of thoughts, and it's a lot of time being your own unique experience.
Yep. Sure enough. All right. So back to talking about patience. Since you did, I believe if I remember the title, patience is the first thing you said, right? Now, is there a reason that you put patience first? Why is patience so important?
Yeah, there is, and thank you for asking. So a couple different reasons. First of all, I think it's something that everybody can understand in some concept. Whether you're patient or not, you know, or at least you believe you know what it is, what patience is. Whether you want to have it, whether you feel like you have it or not, you know what it is.
I think we know when other people don't have it. We may not notice our own, but we do know when other people don't have it, don't we?
Yeah, that, to say the least. And that's when we know whether we have our own or not, right? Because if they don't have it, it's up to us to be patient with them.
True.
But with that comes, right, so everybody knows what patience is. When you get to presence, there's a lot of people, is that woo-woo, I don't know, how do I be present? Are you talking about meditation? Are you talking about yoga or these different things? They kind of have, I'm not as sure about it. And to be joyful, right, so that's number 3. That's often going to be a result of being patient and present. And so that's why that one is in particular on the end. But patience, to our point earlier, it is a skill, it is a practice, it is a muscle that you build up. But when you start to really step into it, that there is only now. And the reason it's first is because people can say, okay, more often than not, when people are stressed or overwhelmed or feeling anxiety, it has to do with either time or there not being enough time. Right? I mean, I'm late for something. I'm sitting in traffic. I'm just stressed. I'm angry. I wanted to have, another example might be, again, I wanted my career to be farther along by now, or I wanted to be in a different relationship by now. Right? There's some sort of reliance on time, and you think there's not enough of it. And so when you start to recognize that all of that is patience, and you're worried about the future, and instead you can say, and real quick, I'll dial it back and say, the first chapter is called Be Patient, but there is a prologue to the book. And this will dial right into patience in a moment. But the prologue talks about the concept that we are all creators, and we are all creating in every given moment. Right now, you and I are creating an awesome episode of your show. We create art, we create music, we create laughter, we create conversation. If you were to put a bunch of words on a piece of paper and put a period at the end, you're creating a sentence. If you were to get 2 pieces of bread and put peanut butter on one side and jelly on the other, you are creating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I know this sounds obvious, but I really want people to think about how often they are creating. Even when you're sleeping, you are creating a human being who is sleeping, right? So we're always creating something just by being. And at any given point, we also often create anxiety, or we create anger, or we create frustration. And it doesn't mean it's not valid that those things are coming up based on our life experience, but it is important for us to recognize that we are creating them from within. And so knowing that you're creating this anger, frustration, anxiety based on your thoughts, then we go into chapter 1, which is be patient. So if at any point you recognize, hey, I'm worried about the future, I'm worried about not being someplace on time, whether that be, in a career-wise or even physically just being late for something or whatever it is, and you can say to yourself, how could I create a patient person? Like genuinely, again, going back to curiosity, right? So now I'm judging this experience as bad if I'm being impatient, but if I'm being curious, how could I create a patient person right now? How would a patient person behave? What does patience feel like? And even just by being curious as to those questions, you actually do create patience, ironically. And then once you start to understand that and feel that you are creating patience, then you go, okay, so if I'm not worried about the future anymore, I am here now. So now is a great time to be present. Right? So that's why chapter 2 goes into be present. What does a present person feel like? What does presence feel like? How could I create a person who is present? And in that sense, okay, so I'm no longer waiting. I think so now I'm patient, right? I know everything is going to unfold as it's supposed to. My job is just to show up on purpose and be here now. And so now is all there really is. When we look at the past, that is just previous nows that typically we're actually not remembering accurately anyway. And the future is just future nows that we're assuming are going to be one way based on our past experience. But the truth is there's literally only now. So when you're feeling stressed, you're feeling overwhelmed, take an opportunity to be here now, to recognize what all 5 of your senses are doing. What do I smell? What do I see? What do I hear? What can I feel air against my face? What is it like right now? Because when it comes down to it, Nikki, every single moment is a gift. Every now is a gift. When you wake up in the morning, there is gravity, there is sunlight, there's oxygen, just so that you can exist. And when you recognize the magnitude of that, this is why I'm here, or I have the ability to be here and do whatever I want with it. Be here now. Am I celebrating this moment? Am I grateful for life itself? Am I stepping into the moment to be the best version of myself as often as possible? And that is what the now can possibly be about.
Exactly.
And then, of course, And then, of course, it goes into chapter 3, which is be joyful. So if you're not waiting anything anymore, you're here now anyway, how would you rather be feeling? How about some joy? You know what I mean? I'd rather be happy. I'd rather be in love with life. I'd rather realize the gift of the moment and create some joy. You know, pet an animal. Think about someone you love unconditionally. Send a text to somebody who you really love, and just that's all you have to say. Hey, just want you to know that I appreciate you as a human being. Thank you for the life that you brought into my life. And all of that is love, and all of that is giving, and all of that is being joyful.
You know, even if you just wake up in the morning and think of something happy instead of thinking about something to complain about. You know,
totally.
and I used to wake up with a migraine 5 days out of 7. And I tell people, I said, okay, I'm thankful to wake up even on the days I have a migraine. And I wake up in like agony, but I'm still thrilled that I woke up. You know, and I don't focus on the fact that I'm in pain. I'm just like, I'm thankful I woke up because I'm alive. You know, and that was even before I had a whole lot of health issues and that kind of thing. I said, you know, but, you know, it could have gone the other way. You know, I could have not woke up. You know, so I mean, you know, and then I had like for like 10 years straight, I lost somebody very, very close to me each year. You know, which I mean that changes your perspective too, and then a lot of health issues and almost died and quite a few different things and things that really changed my perspective. But I mean,
of course,
it just wake up and think of something pleasant, or send a text to somebody you care about and just say something positive. You know, just something to start your day off on a good footing. You know, I think too many people don't do that, and they just start the day off negative, and that's not a good way to start the day.
No, and to your point, I mean, and it becomes a habit, right? When you go to bed thinking about stressful things, and you wake up, you're going to start thinking about stressful things, because that's where your brain is. And each day, then you go out through your day, and that's all you're thinking about, and that's what's showing up for you. Yeah. And what I love that you touched on is gratitude. Like, so what you said was, I wake up every day and I'm grateful to be alive. And so, again, for our listeners out there, if you want to wake up and it's not even just something to be grateful for, think about 100 different things you're grateful for. I have developed a habit to where I wake up in the morning, and before I even realize I'm conscious, I'm already creating gratitude. And I created this habit before this became such an automatic habit for my brain, I would wake up and I would just start with, I'm grateful for my pillow. I'm grateful for my blanket. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful. And then I literally move out. I'm grateful for my bedroom. I'm grateful for my home. I'm grateful for my car. And I picture the things in the driveway. I'm grateful for my property. I'm grateful for the sun. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, you're just starting to realize all the abundance that is surrounding you. I'm grateful for the food in my refrigerator. I'm grateful for my family. All these different things. And you start to, and it's like such a pleasant way to wake up and realize all that you have before you've even opened your eyes. Yeah. And when you start to create that habit, you do start your day on purpose, and you do start your day with from a place of love and gratitude, and from there you start to create more intentions that will serve you as well.
Yep. Well, and my kitty cat comes in, and he pounces on the bed, and he comes up and taps my cheek in the morning, and I mean, what better way to start the day? You know?
Yeah, right. Just a little bit of extra love.
Exactly. A little too much claw, but you know, it's just love taps.
That's right. Baby steps. Baby steps. You mean well.
Exactly. But you know, I know he loves me. That's the important part.
Yeah. And that's you know, animals showing love, and they clearly do. I mean, obviously, the most important of their life.
She's awake. We can play. So.
And feed me, perhaps, right?
Oh, yeah, always. Yeah. Okay, now, people toss out this phrase, living on purpose. How do you define living on purpose for people that have heard it but don't really understand what it is?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So it's going to be different for everybody. Okay. In fact, I had a great conversation with somebody recently. Sometimes people, so let me dial it back. It's like, what is purpose? You know, purpose is intention. So who do I want to be? So for me, living on purpose is deciding who I want to be in every aspect of my life. And it doesn't mean you have to decide in one moment. Make time. Make time to literally write down what you want your ideal life to look like. Know where you are right now. Your past does not have to equal your future. Recognize that you are exactly who you should be for every single every single moment of life you've lived up until this moment. Take all that information and decide what you'd like to change about it. Decide who you'd like to actually be in every aspect of your life. And it might take you 5 minutes. It might take you 4 hours. Write it down, right? Now you have a clear understanding. Because a lot of time people know who they want to be or think that they know what they want their life to look like, but they haven't really taken the time to write down the details. So it's like a North Star, right? This is what I call a North Star document. So you know where you're headed. And at any given point, if you have questions about a way to go in your life, a path to take, a career choice, a relationship choice, or whatever, if those decisions don't align with your North Star, you know that it's not necessarily the direction you want to go. So purposeful living, there's a second part to this as well. But for me, purposeful living is knowing who you want to be so that you can purposely get there. To go back to our analogy of waking up in the morning, as silly as it sounds, like, hey, if I just need to go, I know that I need to go to the kitchen and feed the cat, like that is, I'm doing that on purpose. I'm getting out of bed on purpose to go do that. And
right.
This is a longer game and more of an eternal game in that space, but the purpose of my life, the purpose of my existence, going back to gravity, oxygen, sunlight, I know that I'm here today. What is my purpose? If you don't know what your whole purpose is for life, that's okay, and that's great, and many people in so much space. What is my purpose for today then?
Right.
And by the way, you can write that down as well. And if you do something every day and you recognize, what is my purpose for today? What is my purpose for today? What is my purpose for today? You'll start to recognize themes that will show up. And when you start to actually track it over a 1, 2, 3 week period, you're going to recognize a theme of my purpose for the now.
Right.
And then living in a way that brings that to life. That is what living in a purpose. Now, I also like to tie in, while you're doing all of that, be the light that you want to see in the world, right? So you're not only the purpose for yourself, but your purpose for others, your purpose for life itself. I used to think that we were, as human beings, a bit of like a cancer to the planet, right? We can see we're multiplying, we're growing, we're spreading out, we're doing, certainly environmental damage in certain areas. And I've recently come to think that it's time for an awareness shift where we're actually the immune system. We just need to start acting like we need to be an activated immune system. And as something that is spreading out and growing and taking over the earth, we need to treat it and heal it and make it the best versions of ourselves. And so we do that by being the best versions of ourselves so that we empower others to do the same. And for me, that is the ultimate living on purpose. Decide what you want to do, write it down, remind yourself of it every single day, take action on it every single day, and then be the light that you want to see in the world at the same time.
Interesting. I like that. Well, and I like the idea about even if you don't know the purpose that you want, look for patterns and themes in what you're doing, and you'll find it. Yeah. Yeah,
and that's, the challenge is people think often, well, I don't know what my life's purpose is. It seems too daunting, so I'm just going to not come up with anything. Right? It's so big. It's like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right, as they say, very slowly. So sometimes if it feels too daunting, hey, my purpose is so huge, it could be anything. And 2 points, actually. One, and I already touched on it, but take it one day at a time. But then B, it doesn't have to be the same thing for the rest of your life. I am definitely not the same person I was a year ago, and I'm way different than I was 10 years ago and 20 years ago, right? So we're in these different seasons of life. We're in these different chapters based on experience, based on wisdom, based on life. And so your purpose can change. That's okay. But in my opinion, to really enjoy and take advantage of this gift called life, it's important to have some sort of a purpose in each day.
It's interesting timing because I just got something else, and it was trying to help people figure out if they want to start a business, and it was looking to try to figure out if you want to create a digital product, that's what it was, to sell, and trying to figure out what the product should be and creating a course around it, and trying to figure out what your niche is and what you should create it around. And it's actually doing the same thing we're just talking about as far as figuring out your purpose, and figuring out what your interests and hobbies are, what kind of things you read, what you study. If people ask you for things, what kind of advice you're likely to give them. If you were going to give a talk, what it would be about. If there's problems, what kind of things you can solve. If there was a problem and you were going to give a solution, what it would be. So it's the same sort of thing we're talking about, and that's what this little worksheet is having you do. So basically, you're honing in on what your interests are and what your strengths are for the same. So that's just too funny. I got that right before we started talking.
Yeah, no such thing as coincidence. And that's the other piece to that, Nikki. And this is really important for people to understand that the more we start thinking about who we want to be, and the more we start thinking about and creating gratitude for that opportunity and the ability to actually create that outcome, the more things will pop into our life, and the more quote-unquote coincidences will show up, and the more synergies. The challenge is that majority, and we touched on this earlier, the majority of us spend a lot of time looking at the past. And so that's what we're thinking about all the time. And like we wake up cranky or wake up thinking about things to complain about, we're looking at yesterday. We're looking at the day before. We're looking at last week. And we're looking at things that didn't serve us. And guess what? We're going to get more of that. And we're going to get more opportunities to experience that because that's what we're thinking about with passion, right, unfortunately. So when you shift your way of thinking, there's a guy out there named Dr. Joe Dispenza. So I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, but I highly, highly recommend just YouTube. Look him up on YouTube, and he's got a bunch of books out there. One is called You're the Placebo. There's another one called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and then a more recent one called Becoming Supernatural. And he really dives into the science of attaching emotion to intention and what actually happens in your brain and in your body when you think positive thoughts or when you create gratitude or when you create compassion compared to when you're thinking of anger or frustration or stress, what actually physically goes on in your body. And so really, really powerful stuff, and it can definitely, it's been scientifically proven just that your thoughts will have an effect on your whole way of being.
Well, you look, not getting stuck in the past is such a big deal, because so many, it just seems to be, it seems so easy sometimes for people to get stuck, and they're always talking about what happened before, or who did this to them, and that kind of thing. And if you can just start looking forward, and to what's going to happen next, and getting yourself into the next chapter of what's going to happen. The quite literally turning the page and going forward, and being literally open to new experiences. Looking for new opportunities. Open to new chances and new possibilities and this kind of thing.
It can be the most important thing. Now the challenge is that people will look at that, even people who are just starting off and saying, yes, I want to have a different life, but they still are using all the information from the past to create this different life. And so they're going to get a life that is very similar and based on the past. And so it's really important to separate yourself from the past and say, not only am I thinking more about the future, but I want to think about a future that has a whole new life and literally has nothing to do with the past. And when you do that, you start to open yourself up to more possibility. And again, it really is that difference, going back to the beginning of our conversation, judgment versus curiosity. If you're constantly judging the past as good or bad, and that's all you're thinking about, then that's all you're going to get. But when you're not even, you're just being curious as to what the future could possibly, have for me, that's when you open it up to opportunity and to enjoying life.
To your point. And it can boil down to judgment is nearly as much fun as curiosity. Curiosity is just so much more fun.
Because there's so much more opportunity. Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, my gracious.
And the other thing about looking at the past, that is a physical habit. Your brain, when, like we said, we wake up in the morning, you're thinking about the same things you thought about yesterday and the day before and the day before that. It's because you've been doing this for 30 years or 40 years or whatever it may be. Yeah. So your brain, has neurons that are firing, and they're used to their paths that they're just used to going on. And so immediately that's what they do. And when you try to change that immediately, it becomes difficult. It becomes uncomfortable. So people quickly go back to their old way of being. So it's not that it's easy to make the change, but it is important if you really want to make a change. I love what you said, turn the page, start a new chapter, and be curious as to what that chapter could have in it, instead of just assuming that it's going to have all the same stuff that it had before. You know, you said people love to talk about their past. They've created an identity and a story based on this whole past that they want to tell over and over and over again. This happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me. Well, that's what they're always thinking about, and they're always telling people about. And so not only is it on their mind all the time, but then they bring it into conversations with other people, and then it becomes part of the conversation. And so now it's back in their mind, and they're reflecting it back to them. So what if you were never talking about the past but only talking about the future? What would your life look like?
Yeah. Well, you know, one big thing, too, that's guaranteed is you can't change the past, but you can change the future. Because it hasn't happened yet. So the future's wide open.
The future.
Exactly.
Always.
Exactly.
And here's the other piece. One of my huge lessons in life is if you start to realize, and you know, a lot of the time in this space, if you can't change the past, people in that space come from a place that life happened to me. This is happening to me. Yes. All these experiences happened to me, and I had no choice in it. I'm stuck here, and now I'm this because that happened to me. Yeah. Well, that is judging it. This is judging it as happened to me. But if you change it to happened for me, and you get curious as to why that would have even possibly happened, even terrible things, and I'm not belittling anybody's traumatic experience. I've had several, if not many myself, and at the time they didn't feel like they were happening to me at all. They didn't feel like they were happening for me at all. But when I learned this lesson, I was able to then take a step back and be like, wow, I am really uncomfortable, really unhappy, stressed, overwhelmed, or whatever. How could this have possibly happened for me? And I genuinely am curious. I'm not asking it facetiously, oh, yeah, how did this happen for me? But okay, so if this did, if I was reading a story or looking in hindsight and I were to say, how could this have possibly happened for the character? How could it possibly happen for me? And looking for the answer, then your right brain, your curiosity starts asking and starts looking for that. And that's how you create a win scenario, by looking for how this could serve you or your purpose or your future. Or, real quick, I'll just say the future or of others as well.
Well, and if you feel that the past happened to you and was controlled by other people, then it's time for you to take control and create your future.
100%. And you do that by recognizing that it didn't happen to you. It happened for you. You just didn't do anything with it.
Well, I got sick and tired of other people trying to tell me what to do all the time and making me miserable. And it's like, you know what? Enough of this is enough. I just know. Right. I'm not giving them the power anymore. And you know, the last words somebody said to me in a messenger on Facebook, and I said honestly, none of you and no one in that organization has any control over me anymore. Yeah. None. And he has not said another word to me since then. I said, I'm done with it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, we are also the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with.
Yeah.
So what types of conversations are we having? Who are you spending your time with? Who are you learning from? Are you having conversations about your future more often? Or are you sitting there stuck with the same old patterns, having conversations about the past? Or you're surrounding yourself with other people who are constantly complaining or are negative or are, again, not necessarily looking to create but are looking to cope.
Yeah.
And, if you – and that one, by the way, also when I say the people you surround yourself most with, that may be people you don't ever physically meet in person. It may be somebody who you find online. It may be somebody who you seek out on YouTube. It may be someone like Gary Vaynerchuk or somebody like Tony Robbins or, again, Dr. Joe Dispenza or whoever it is that lights you up. Spend time with those people. And if you're watching shows, if you're binge watching something on Netflix that isn't serving your purpose, maybe dial it back a little bit and choose an hour of that time to be spent watching something that does serve your purpose or that does bring love and light into your world or does bring joy or thought-provoking conversations into your life. I mean, there's so much opportunity now more than ever in the history of the world for you to absorb information from any area that you want in life. And so surround yourself energetically with people that will serve your purpose and the purpose of others.
Yeah, it's whatever you surround yourself with. So, and it can be something completely mindless that serves absolutely no purpose, or it could be something that does help you. One of the two.
Yeah. And that's it. So, hey, this is a gift. This moment right now is a gift. How am I utilizing it? What am I doing with it?
Well, and even in the middle of all of this COVID craziness, there's a lot of craziness going on right now, but that doesn't mean that has to absorb every minute of our existence. I mean, there's a whole lot of awesome stuff going on, even with all of that going on out there.
100%.
There just is.
I listen, and I don't want to say this to sound like a jerk, but I've had an amazing year. Because I haven't been able to go out, and so I've had more time to focus on my family. I've had more time to focus on who I want to be. I've had more time to work on my business. I've spent more time creating and connecting with people, getting on podcasts, meeting new friends, learning, spending more time in my message, reading, listening to other books. It's really been an amazing year. And when you say, and when I say everything happens for you, yes, even a global pandemic can happen for you. Yeah. I know a guy who was divorced. He was amicable with his wife, but he couldn't. His industry wasn't prevalent where she had decided that she wanted to live with their daughters, and their daughters were teenagers. And so he would drive about 4 hours every weekend to spend time with them, but it really wasn't an optimal situation. And due to COVID, whenever he would drive, and again, they were amicable, so he would drive up there to spend time with his ex and their kids. And there was a room in the house, and he was able to stay there. He would stay down in the basement and just spend time with the kids on the weekend because it was easier. He would help them out around the house or whatever. But once COVID came, she was in the reserves, and she was a nurse, and so she got called to the front lines, and he got to spend time. They decided that he would stay at the house. I mean, he was paying for it anyway, but they decided that he would stay at the house, and he got to spend 3 months with his girls, and he hadn't done that in years.
Oh, imagine.
And so in some capacity, while it was and by the way, I'm not, to your point, terrible things have happened, that people have lost loved ones. There's been people very sick, and I'm not saying, oh, this COVID thing has been amazing and such a wonderful gift to the world. I'm just saying that everybody's unique experience, that you can find something good in almost any scenario if you decide that you want to.
Right.
But yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, and if you spend all your time watching the news, all you're going to hear is what's terrible. And if you spend all your time on social media, depending on who you're connected with, all you're going to hear is what's terrible. But if you make the time to go out and find things that are wonderful and to choose thoughts that serve your purpose, that's what you're going to start seeing a lot more of.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
And I don't know about you, but I'm ready for the rest of the world to do that so that we can start sharing and we can start seeing and we can start feeling love as a world again.
Well, and I mean, even with everything going on out there, this is a perfect time for people to reassess and to start appreciating what they have and to appreciate their families, to appreciate the people they have that they do care about. And, I mean, it's just a time to start taking stock in things, and to realize that, I don't know, I just think it's time for people to kind of reassess things. I just do. That's what I thought when this whole thing first started.
Perfect opportunity.
And the longer it's drug on, the less people are doing that. That's like when we first were kind of not all quarantined at home, and I still don't think quarantine is the right word for it, because like the people that weren't sick were made to stay home. But when we first were back out on the roads, it was so peaceful out on the roads, right? And then I was out yesterday because I had a doctor's appointment, and the last couple of days, and like people are like zooming in and out of traffic and cutting you off and almost running you off the road, and just the attitude with drivers is just horrendous the last few days. And I'm like, okay, the first few days, a couple months ago when you were on the road, it was so peaceful and people had a nice attitude when you ran into them, and that kind of thing. And then the last few days, it's just hell on the roads kind of thing, So it just, I mean, the attitude with drivers in the last like 45 days or so is just horrendous.
Yeah. Well, it's because there's so much anger being pushed out there. They're listening to things all day of everybody being angry and mean and hating each other. Well, politically or otherwise, right? There's just so much divisive.
The longer this drags on, the worse it's getting.
So what do you think we do about that, Nikki? What's your opinion?
I try not to get it political in the show, so I'll just keep my thoughts to myself.
No. So from a non-political standpoint, but what do you think we do that as individuals, like as human beings? What do you think that we could do to connect with and change the way that society is showing up?
Stop listening to the media, because the media is hyping things in a way to divide people really badly. There's way too much stuff out there that's being spun to make it a whole lot worse. There's a whole lot of false information being put out there. There's a lot of truth that's not being circulated. It just, the way it's being put out is being done totally to divide people and to cause a whole lot more problems.
Yeah, I agree. I love it. I could not agree more. I think it's funny, we've been kind of programmed, and this goes back 100 years, we've been programmed, through concepts of Darwin to believe that life is a competition and that it's survival of the fittest. And that may be true in nature, right, with animals who are just out there doing their own survival thing, but it's really not true with humans. It is not survival of the fittest. It's not competition. It's actually our nature is empowerment. And I think if everybody stepped into the concept, instead of, hey, I need to be better than you in order for me to survive, we really, our only competition becomes ourself. And it's not even competition. It's just I want to be the best version of myself, and that's it, so that I can empower you to do the same. And if you can be the best version of yourself, and I can be the best version of myself, and we stop judging anybody for being anybody that they shouldn't be or shouldn't be, and instead just empower them to be the best version of themselves, whatever that means, by doing it ourselves, I think that is what's going to change the world. And I think that if people can start stepping into love and gratitude and compassion and sharing and just helping others to live on purpose, that's when things will really start to change.
Yeah.
We're at a pretty important point right now in human history where, there's information like that I'm just sharing that is out there and accessible. I think it's just important for more people to want to look at that and to feel that than they are wanting to be overwhelmed by the news media and the things, like you said, all the different agendas that are kind of being pushed on all sides, right? Everybody's got an agenda. So if the only agenda was love and human nature and servitude and creating and gratitude and compassion, I don't think there'd be any challenges.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be pleasant?
Yeah. And, it's a long game, right? It's not going to happen in our lifetime, but it's certainly by creating a foundation and setting an example. At least now we have the ability to create videos, to create conversations like this one that people can hear and keep on record for as long as possible, right? As long as our technology is valid, to where we can ideally have an impact on future generations, and they will start to do the same. Yep.
Well, we try. We certainly try. One of the most important things that I learned in my coaching training, and I try to share with the audience, and I want to see what you think, is that, part of coaching was that I have to not be judgmental with clients and with other people. And that resonated really, really strongly with me when I realized that if I wasn't to be judgmental with other people, I needed to stop judging me, because I was really bad about that. I was raised in a very judgmental atmosphere, and so I automatically started judging myself because, hell, everybody else did,
Of course. Yeah.
So I was very judgmental with myself about everything pretty much. And then when it dawned on me that I needed to stop judging myself about everything, it was one of the most freeing days of my life. And I'm not the only person that does that by far. So I've tried to convey to the listeners that I have a feeling a good number of them probably judge themselves in various ways. What do you think about that?
I think it's huge.
Would you give them?
Absolutely. And I said it a little bit already, but I could not agree more. Going back to that should versus could. Like, how often do you find yourself saying should? I should do this. I should have done that. I should, that is judgment, and it's not serving you, and it's not helping you to be better.
Right.
So and again, going back to, if anybody out there, typically when we're judging ourselves, it's in comparison to others, right? So we're saying, I'm not good enough compared to what I see as an ideal human being, whatever the heck that might be. Right? We see people on Instagram. We see people who are quote-unquote successful. We see people, accepting an award on television as an actor or something like that. We see all these different people at these different heights who are always showing their best selves, right, or a picture of their best selves. But what we don't see are the days when they were stressed out, the days when they were considering suicide, the days when they were really depressed or sad, or the days when they were fighting or judging themselves as well. So to your listeners out there, you are exactly as you should be based on every single second of life that you've lived up until this moment. And if anybody else out there was born to your parents and lived every single second of life that you lived up until this moment, they would be the exact same person that you are. But the great news is that you are completely unique. You are a unique form of consciousness experiencing itself through life. What do you want to do with it? Stop comparing yourself to others, because you don't know, as we touched on earlier, you don't know their full story. And it wouldn't make any sense for you to be anything like them, because you're not them. You are you. So you know what your strengths are. You know what your gifts are. We all, there's certainly humility, right? It's nice to be humble. And I'm not saying people should go around and be braggadocious and cocky and say, I'm the best in the whole world at everything. But I am saying that we know what we're good at. We know what we like to do. We know when we're going into flow. So recognize what those things are. Create gratitude for them. Be thankful that this body that you have and this mind that you have has these particular gifts, and step into them. And start thinking about more of who you want to be instead of comparing yourself to others and thinking about what you're not. Instead of saying what I should or shouldn't have done in my life, think about what can I do from here? Who do I want to be now? And is my thought, this thought, which in this example is judgment, is this serving who I want to be? And if the answer is no, which is going to be typical, especially in someone who is feeling judgmental of themselves or others, but if the answer is no, this is not serving me or my purpose, what thought may? What would be a thought right now? Again, going back to curiosity, right? We just shifted from judgment to curiosity. I was judging myself, and now instead I'm shifting my energy completely to curiosity. What is a thought that could serve my purpose? What is a thought that could bring more of who I want to be into my life? And when you start, and the answer maybe it's going to be different for everybody else. It may be, well, the thought is that I do love my family, that I do love my home, I do love an experience that I had last week. I do love, whatever it is. What brings you purpose? The thought may just be that I do know what my gift is, and I have the opportunity to spend more time sharing it. If you're judging yourself, first of all, I just want to say that I'm by no means am I judging you for being judgmental of yourself or others. 99.9% of humans are in some capacity. It's part of human nature, but it doesn't have to be that way. And when you recognize that it is a thing that you can change, again, in my opinion, if you want to be different, it's your responsibility to step into it and to make some changes. Again, I know I already said his name, but really, guy changed my life. I would definitely start off with a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Exactly. So do you want to tell the audience how they can find out more about you?
Yeah, happily. And thank you very much for the opportunity. So first of all, my name is Ryan Stanley. That's RyanStanley. And so you can find me at ryanstanley.com. You can also purchase my book there. If you go to the menu on ryanstanley.com, one of the options is Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful. If you just click on that, you can buy a book there. If you buy it online from that site, you'll get a signed copy from me with a little note to you. But also, depending on my availability, will come with a complimentary coaching session. So that's A. But B, if you want to buy the book, if you spend more time on Amazon, obviously it's on there. You can go check it out. I've got 5-star ratings, unanimous 5-star ratings. So check it out on Amazon if you like. It's on Barnes & Nobles, wherever books are sold. And really, if you're on social media, I am if you go to ryanstanley.com, my social buttons are all there. But I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, and I'd love to connect with anybody there.
Sounds very good. Well, thank you for joining me today.
Nikki, it's really been my pleasure. It's been an awesome conversation. Thank you for being a big part of it and allowing me to share some time and space with you.
Well, I only got through half the questions I had, so we'll just have to do this another time.
That sounds perfect. I'm ready whenever you are.
All righty. Well, listeners, I hope you got some great information, and I'll be with you next time on Ready for Love Radio.